Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Red Path. My name's Brian, and today I'm going to be going over my first impressions of 11th edition and the impacts that I believe it will have on world leaders. Now, sit back, enjoy a brew. We're going to get right into it, and you're just going to hear some of my personal raw opinions on the edition after I've played a couple dozen test games. So first up, some channel and life updates. For those of you who haven't noticed, we've gone a little bit without dropping any content recently, and that's for a few reasons, right? First of all, I just got married last week, and Dar is currently working on his PhD program, so we are taking a little bit of a step back recently for some just important life decisions. It's okay, we're back. We're going to be here for the edition, I promise. WTC has also been kind of dictating almost like a part-time job that is almost full-time that doesn't pay. Josie and I are in the background completely grinding 11th edition into the dirt so we can bring you guys the best tactics possible right out the gate. We're kind of forced to on behalf of our respective national teams. Now, the test games and vibes so far, from what I've been playing, have felt actually pretty good. I am broadly excited for the implications of 11th edition. While they may not get everything completely right out the gate, and I can completely understand. Also, this channel has almost doubled in size since 10th edition dropped. Most of you probably haven't endured an edition change before. And I beg you, I plead you with you, and I promise it'll all be okay. Even though it may not be the way we want it out the gate, GW does have a driven goal to fix everything as fast as possible. For those of you who remember launch World Leaders in 10th edition, Exalted 8-bound were like 180 points, right? Mauler Fiends were up there too. Berserkers were like 230 or 220 points for 10. I expect whatever the state of the game is going to be in the next couple weeks will look drastically different from what it will be in 3 months. So just keep it together. Let's be happy with what we have, and let's look forward to building some good lists. So, anyways, I'm going to get straight into my vibes and start talking about my broad 11th takes. Starting off, we'll start with a positive note. Games feel smoother, and there are less feels bads at a zoomed in level. And what I mean by that is it feels like there are more decisions that are impactful without just completely screwing you over, right? Hazardous is an example. Used to be that you would rarely ever overcharge your plasma pistols in a berserker squad because I've rolled the snake eyes plenty of times and I've lost two zerks just right off the rip, right? And that feels really bad, especially for an army where we're stacking and compounding buffs like lethal sustain, dev, reroll once to hit and wound. Losing a berserker in the shooting phase to hazardous just means that like that is a compounding amount of damage that you're taking out of that squad. So usually you'd never overcharge your plasma pistol. Hazardous being now on a 1 or a 2 for 1 damage means you can get away with overcharging a plasma pistol without risking losing a guy or even the pistol itself. So being able to have that in your back pocket is like, yeah, I actually really do need to do a little bit of damage over there, and the odds that you do roll 2 snake eyes and kill 1 berserker is a 1 in 9 chance, right? So like maybe you're more tempted to do it, right? Uh, Now that also isn't completely true. That's one end of the spectrum. You go to the other end of the spectrum, right? Where you have one wound models or you have vehicles that'll be hazarding. Well, we don't really have those. But for other armies like Riptides, honestly, if you're going to complain about failing multiple hazardous checks in a row on a Riptide, you should be happy that you shot the Riptide 3 times, like, as it probably already paid for itself. And what that means to me is that there are more decisions being made at the table, whether or not to hazardous, and actually thinking about like the fact that it's not just like an auto decision that you're going to make every single time. That's good. That's broadly good for the game, even though that may be a nerf to other play styles. The next thing I'm going to talk about is secondaries. They aren't dead draws anymore, right? You draw a secondary card, you can only score 15 points per turn on secondary, but that dreaded assassinate overwhelming force that you get off the rip on turn 1 isn't just like a complete eye roll, right? You can still pitch a card for a CP, and I guarantee you you'll probably get assassinate before turn 4 or something, right? It'll show its head, you'll get your points. That feels better, right? I hate getting punished by the core function of the game, and them changing that is a good change, especially for a mono melee or shooting light army, where a lot of those secondaries just are not achievable turn one, right? We can't just peek a corner, shoot, kill something, get our points, right? That's not possible really for us to bring it down safely or securely all the time on turn one. The next thing is all of the movement jank. There's a lot of movement jank, and we weaponized it a lot as World Leader players. Don't kid yourself. We weaponized it a lot, but it's been simplified and kind of cut down to its basics. And they've done their best to remove a lot of like the, well, I'm going to base block myself, which means I can't go there, which means I can go anywhere I want kind of thing. Or like blood surging, where it's just you move one model in, and the rest of the squad splits like rats. Like that's not really a thing anymore, which may come as a nerf to us, but it would always like evoke really weird feelings from your opponent. It was kind of like a weird and strange feels bad. I'm kind of okay with that going away. It still exists to a degree, and the rules still do support things like overrun and slingshotting, which we'll go to. I have another tactics video dropping after this to go more in depth. But as a broad thing, I think that is better for the game for that to be gone. While that maybe people may see that as less skill expressive, it's definitely less gimmicky. Uh, Next thing is rhino wrapping. We have combat disembarks. I know GW was like praising this as the melee edition. Spoiler alert, I'll rip the band-aid off. It really isn't. Melee did get some good quality of life changes, but broadly, the mechanics of the game are still going to favor shooting. But it always sucked to get your Rhino wrapped. Granted, the World Leader Rhino has the you may disembark if somebody gets within a distance, but it is going to be super easy for your opponent to just be like, yeah, I'll stand outside of 8 of that Rhino. I'm going to go for that charge into those 8 bound. Oops, I banged an 11. I'm going to go wrap your Rhino, right? You're not dead in the water for a couple reasons. A, every desperate escape and hazardous check is now the same. It's all been simplified to the same role. So your Rhino won't die falling back. Sick. That felt awful being forced to desperate with a full health vehicle and have it just die. So you take 3 damage. And B, combat disembark is an option to still get you into combat and still fighting, right? It is good that there's an option. Like I said, they're just cleaning up all the feels bads of just core mechanical movement interactions itself, right? And then the last thing I want to talk about for like overview things like quality of life, battle shock feeling relevant. It's a good thing. It really felt like that mechanic just was like lost and confused in 10th. If you're battle shocked, you have to keep continuously taking battle shocks until you unbattle shock. Now this is going to go both ways, right? We are an army that relies on transports. Transport dies and you fall out, you could be battle shocked. And you could be going into your next turn still battle shocked. And the turn after that, still battle shocked. There's genuine consequences to being battle shocked, whereas it felt like it before there weren't. And while this may negatively impact world leaders a little bit more than a couple other armies, like I said, I mean, it's still nice to see, again, game mechanics be relevant. Now, some of the feels bads, there are some feels bads that are more apparent in 11th edition that, I mean, I'm not really a fan of, but it's something that will come up, hopefully not as detrimental as to my, like, I've only had it come up a couple times. But for example, like all charges are an inch longer, right? If you are 8.5 from your opponent in 10th edition, that is an 8-inch charge. In 11th edition, that is a 9-inch charge. And that is going to be a recurring thing every time you'll experience. Well, you will just instinctually judge a distance and be like, oh, that's a 6-inch charge. And you'll check it again and be like, actually, there's 7.1 away. That is an 8-inch charge. Or if you're the minimum distance from an opponent that you can be, the Snake Eye still fails that charge, right? You will feel that. You will fail those charges, and you will be angry. But will they be often? I don't think so, right? And the 2d6 charge to go anywhere you want is a big quality of life buff. So we'll have to see how that works out. Granted, we did get our reroll charges blessing changed to +1 to charge. While that may seem like a nerf, there's something I'm going to talk about later in like list concepts and detachment concepts that we will be getting into. But broadly, I feel like that feels bad is going to rear its head every now and then. It'll be fine. It'll probably be fine. I'm hoping it'll be fine. Tank shock. I just recently, actually yesterday, experienced moving a World Leader Defiler up to a Dreadnought, tank shocking it, dealing 5 damage to myself and none to my opponent. While that is not at all statistical, it will be something in the back of your head where if you're looking at a tank shock play you want to do, and you have a Defiler or Angron or a Mauler Fiend at 3 or 4 wounds, you could just biff it, right, and die. So be conscious of that. Be careful of that. Granted, Angron now gets a tank shock, which could be cool, right? Like you could go tank shock a vehicle that's like close to death with Angron, kill it, and then overrun straight into the unit that fell out, which could be absolutely devastating for your opponent. So keep an eye out for plays like that. That is something that we now have access to. There's another thing about there's like some weird coherency obligation things that really drive me crazy. Hopefully that gets FAQ'd so that it's not the case. Currently, if you declare a charge, you must satisfy all conditions before you can complete that charge. The conditions include if you are able to be within an inch and able to be within engagement range, you must. And where this comes up is if you charge 2 units, who are a decent distance apart, and you rolled good enough on that charge to where all of your models can end within an inch or engagement of both units. You can't have a guy in the middle to maintain coherency. They have to be in engagement. I hope that one changes. I hope that that one's being misinterpreted or that there's an FAQ to clarify that coming out. Again, we are waiting for points and we are waiting for the final FAQs to put this all to bed. Moving on, some maps and positioning, right? Hidden does have impact. Everybody was talking about how Hidden was going to be this crazy melee buff. It's not actually that impactful to where like melee's OP and melee needs to get nerfed. That is a little bit of a crazy take. I will say that it is impactful, albeit minimal, right? Hidden will matter for you being on your home objective and making sure you still hold it, or you barely on your expansion objective from the back of the expansion objective, still holding it, right? Odds are you probably could have held that expansion objective from behind a wall, but there are going to be situations where holding an objective with Hidden will be relevant. More often than not, what this is going to do is it's going to make your opponent come forward just a little bit to be within 15 of you, probably what they were already going to do anyways, and blast you off the table. 15 inches is a lot bigger than it looks, especially when you pull the tape measure out and measure it. And between the runes and staging points, it's not really that hard for your opponent to get within those ranges. But like I said, what it is important for is for like the middle objective, if you put a rhino behind that objective and you put spawn on the objective hidden, holding it, your opponent has to come within 15, which is probably within Berserker advance and charge range, right? And that is going to be how we mostly are using hidden. Uh, Ingressing into hidden is a big deal. Deep strike and ingress is way stronger than it was in 10th, and it was already very strong in 10th. So your ability to play from reserves, specifically with things like 8-bound coming down in hidden, is going to be very, very important. The other thing I want to highlight real quick is unless you're doing some weird big base skew build where you're just a bunch of holes and defiler bases, it is much easier to safely deploy in your deployment zone than compared to GW previous terrain lands. Everybody knows what tipping 2 was like, right? That's not really a thing anymore. There may be some layouts where you are still able to get angles on you, right? I'm not saying that you're going to be completely safe hiding your 3 defilers and anger on your deployment zone. I am saying that it is way easier to hide your 8-bound MSU and actually feel relevant in your deployment zone while not just locking yourself out of the game because you didn't go first or second. That being said, specifically for teams, being able to first defend or just defend in general and have a guaranteed Goremonger drop, super nice too. Infiltrators will be pretty good. Being able to infiltrate into hidden or infiltrate into a table quarter where you can walk into hidden and still hold the objective, very important. I'm still going to have one squad of Goremongers in all of my lists. Next up, the changes to cover. Cover broadly, like I said, benefits us being -1 to hit on our cultists, on our Zerkers, on our 8-bound, which 3-up, 5-up, right? We are getting pushed to our invuln a lot, especially things that want to be shooting at 8-bound and things that want to be shooting at stuff like Angron or Land Raiders. It's all going to be high AP anyways. So being able to have access to -1 to hit does make us more durable. Now, shooting your guns does mean you lose hidden. So as I said, it's nice that your hazardous plasma pistols can now be fired without feeling bad, but just remember that there is a decision now. There is an actual trade-off. You could lose hidden, which could be relevant in that moment, which again is game decisions and skill expression, which I am all for. Especially if you're playing Khorne Demonkin, all of our Khorne Demons getting -1 to hit is a strict buff, right? Khorne Demonkin has always struggled with durability. Well, now it is completely one die modifier, more durable, which is nice. It's good to have, good to see. I actually am more in favor of this. Tagging somebody, remember that cover and modifiers to hit, and they're different because one is a modifier to the roll and one is a modifier to the weapon skill. So you can actually double stack it, be -2 to hit, and you can put Marines on 5s to hit you. Or even for us, unfortunately, that means our Defilers and our Land Raiders can go to 6s to hit, which is a pain in the butt, but I'll get into that in a second because there are archetypes and ways around that. Overall army archetypes that I think are they're going to be coming out of the gate swinging. Fast gun is indeed good. Spoiler alert, it always has been, always will be. And with that, it is impossible to stage an entire army. If you want to put your entire army in the middle of the table, it is impossible to do that without welcoming some kind of a gun-related alpha strike or response. Sometimes you can get away with hiding Angron or one Rhino in a cheeky spot. A lot of the maps have like a designated Rhino hiding spot where you can guarantee that you'll be safe. But broadly, if you're trying to hide Defilers and you're trying to stage up 2 to 3 Rhinos or a Land Raider, it is impossible to hide them. They will be found and they will be shot, and you do need to get over that, right? And we need to plan for that. We need to account for that. We need to accommodate our lists for that. Uh, it's just going to be the case of the 11th meta because if you can move 15 inches and tow terrain, you can see almost the entire table from pretty much any board corner. It is something we're gonna have to get used to, and we're gonna have to play around it. It is just a fact, right? There are larger distances to cross now from a staging point, right? You can stage on the backside of that middle ruin. That middle ruin is like 14, 15 inches wide. And then you got another like 8 inches before the next ruin, and then you have where your opponent is hiding. So unless you are able to move 15, 17 inches, you aren't reliably getting charges into your opponent on a reliable level, right? Granted, our blessings for +1 to charge matters a lot. Spawn being able to move 10 and advance and charge. We have Gore Track with its move the Rhino, get out and charge. Like all of that will be really good for getting around this. And I think stuff like Khorne can like we'll get into we have a detachment tier list coming out soon where we get into depth on what we think about the individual detachments and how they play in 11th. Stay tuned for that if that's not out before or after this video. I'm not really sure. Josie's editing that one. But we have ways around that, right? And we'll get into that. And with that, larger distances to cross, fewer places to hide outside of your deployment zone. I really think world leaders largely will be fine on launch into an average setting. Like it's not dead in the water as an army in terms of you will be able to go to an RTT and still maintain your 2-in-1 status. I completely believe that. But I genuinely do think we are going to struggle into the fast gun good meta, right? We are too expensive and not durable enough to maintain a Monka Alpha Strike because you have to stage up and you can't sit back, right? Especially because the best primary that we have access to, which is going to be a recurring thing, is Purge the Foe. We have multiple ways to get access to that within our codex, and that's where I'd be encouraging people to look anyways. And it's going to encourage you to go across the board and kill your opponent, which is going to require you to stage, which your opponent will then be able to respond by shooting you. So we have to get our opponent into our threat ranges if they want to shoot us so we can then respond as effectively and cost efficiently as possible. One other thing I've noticed is primaries are less brutal. And how I'll say that is if you are able to alpha strike your opponent on a go turn, knock them off of their expansion objectives, maybe even their home, and really shove them back into a corner. If you did that in 10th edition, you've almost won the game on the spot. In 11th, that is not the case. It is way easier to score points in 11th edition, specifically because the dispositions may not even care about objectives. Some of them care very little. Some of them care about what you do on those objectives during your turn. And broadly, secondaries will be scored more often because you can hold on to them. So alphaing your opponent into pushing for points isn't really as prevalent as it was before. Now, it'll still have an impact, but in 10th, it was like a death sentence to get knocked off your expansion for 2 turns. You've pretty much lost the game. Not saying that isn't important anymore, but it is less important. And this goes both ways, right? If you get knocked off your expansion, don't doom, right? You'll be fine. Now, some key concepts that I'll go over that are less of like an 11th overview and more focused on world leaders specifically. Purge the Foe does seem to be our best primary, and the fact that our army doesn't really want us to be sitting still, it wants us to be aggressively pushing forward. And a lot of the other primary dispositions, like priority assets and recon, involve a lot of actions. And the same thing even with disruption sometimes. We don't really want to be doing actions. If you're a 12 to 13 unit count world leader army, you're already an incredibly high unit count world leader army. Most of the time, you're going to be like 11 and somewhere in that number, and you're going to want every unit activating if possible to be maintaining that pressure, that board pressure, like I was talking about. The other thing is keep your head in the game, right? A lot of primaries are going to rack up points very, very quickly, and a lot of primaries are going to rack up points very late in the game, right? It is very possible holding secondaries, especially for us, because we're mono melee, right? Or melee, mono melee adjacent. You might have a couple guns in your army. But a lot of secondaries aren't going to be scoreable on turn 1 and 2. And you're going to be converting those into turn 3 and turn 4 into massive 25, 30 point turns, especially when you account for end of game scoring as well. So just because you see your opponent pulling ahead in primary very quickly. Don't lose hope. Purge the foe. It can score a lot of points consistently throughout the game at any point in the game, and your secondaries will come back, right? I'll also say that there is more of an emphasis on combined arms and on ingressing being way more valuable. Like I said, I think Exalted 8-bound ingressing into Hidden, or just ingressing in general, Angron ingressing, all of that stuff is going to be way more valuable, right? And the only way that we can guarantee that ingressing is going to be safe is either if we can do it into Hidden, which means we're appropriately pushing our opponent back with spawn, or B, if we are keeping their opponents out of firing lanes. Now, how do we keep our opponents out of firing lanes? We have guns of our own. That's the only way we can really do it. We don't have to win the shootout, but we have to make our opponents respect us in the shootout. Otherwise, they'll stand in firing lanes and you'll never get to ingress anywhere you want. I really do think, as I'll get into later, we're going to talk about a lot with Khorne Demonkin plus Brazen Engines, that the Daka Defiler with double autocannons is a very good option for this. You also have the Forge Fiends, which are now hitting on fives, but full rerolling the hit roll into the closest target does mean that you will still hit more than half of your shots on average. So like the Forge Fiend does look way better. Land Raider, a little less cute, still relevant, right? Especially if we're looking to stage in the middle of the table and still be there. The Land Raider is actually pretty good for that. If you want to just stick yourself in the middle of the table, have a Gore Track Land Raider, and still have it be there at the end of the turn, that does mean that you have a lot of pushing potential in your next turn. You can drive the Land Raider up, disembark 3, go, right? So I do think combined arms will be more relevant for us. I do think guns are almost obligatory. Mono melee is harder than ever to pull off. While it still may be possible, you will definitely feel the wrath of your opponent's gun line if they recognize that they can just be wherever they want and pre-measure your threat ranges and they're A-okay, right? Don't give that to them. I think just a couple guns in your army to keep them honest is very important. The next thing I want to talk about is that transports are quote unquote death traps. So I've been hearing that a lot. It's kind of true, a little over exaggerated, but it's way harder to stage multiple safely. Right? We need to get over that. Like Goretrack will still be playing free transports. You're not suddenly going to stop playing transports. You will still be on Karn plus 10 more than likely. There's a few cute things you can do, like you can disembark, like when a transport dies, you can disembark into hidden. One thing you want to be cognizant of is when a transport does die, you have to completely base the transport or be as close as possible to it, which can force you to touch terrain, which can allow your opponent to keep shooting you. So be careful with tucking rhinos up into L's and into corners, right? Because they're going to be forced to disembark into the L. Bring the rhino back a little bit, and you'll be fine, right? And they're still very important for bubble wrapping your incredibly expensive Berserker bricks, right? We can't walk Berserker bricks into the middle of the table. Your opponent's just going to tow it with one gun, blast them all, gone, right? Make them at least put two guns into it. Bubble wrapping your Berserkers is still very important. I know that they can battle shock on the way out. I know that they can feel the explosion of the Rhino. Trust me, it is worth the speed bump and worth forcing your opponent to put more of their stuff into the middle of the table to make sure your transports are actually dying. One thing I wanted to talk about, since we were talking about rapid ingress and playing from Deep Strike being more relevant, +1 to charge instead of reroll charges, right? Not only does this make our auto fail charges go away, it helps us cover a little bit more distance, right? You still have access to CP reroll on your charge, right? Our advance and charge in Berserker Warband isn't tied to the charge phase, which is nice. It is in the movement phase, so you can double it up if you need to. The other thing here is that Lust also stacks with the +1 to charge very well. Battle Lust pretty much had no reason to play it unless you had extra awkward points. Now you can put Battle Lust on a Slaughterbound in reserves, pick the +1 to charge blessing, which will then give the Slaughterbound free reroll to its charge and an additional +1. So now you have a 7-inch rerolling charge from Deep Strike, which I believe is low 80% to land. So a 4 out of 5 chance to actually land a Slaughterbound coming from reserves, especially when we're already talking about how concerned we are with crossing the table, is huge. I'll get into I'll just like segue this into some example lists. Granted, we don't know points yet. Yeah, I think it's kind of pointless to try to come up with list concepts to a unit-to-unit level, but I can talk about what I know and what I think will be good in each of the main archetypes for world leaders. Granted, we have Gortrak plus Vessels, which I think is a very natural and easy combination of the 1 DPs. This makes the most sense as a pairing to me. Josie will be covering that in the future. We definitely have a Demonators and a Gortrak video coming out soon, probably in the next couple weeks. breaking down exactly lists with points, our best recommendations for styles for how to play them. All that stuff will come. We just need the full picture, guys. I'm not going to be putting out clickbait content for no reason, so we'll make sure that we give you guys actual good content there. But I know that build will be viable, and it is good. Demonators, like I said, paired with KDK, makes up for a little bit of that durability scare. 10 Terminators deep striking into hidden sounds terrifying as hell. I definitely do think that will be viable. We do have a detachment tier list, like I said, coming soon. We'll go into depth about why we think that, but just hang out for a little bit on that. Brazen and Khorne Demonkin. I am super excited for this one. I think Daka Defilers will be really good. Being able to go 1 CP, ignore all modifiers to hit and wound, to both the die roll and weapon skill is huge. This thing will actually just rinse an entire squad of Victor's Guard now. I think specifically within the context of Khorne Demonkin, which plays from reserves better than any of the other detachments, being able to rapid ingress Scarbrand, Juggernaut Lord +6 Juggernauts, right? Even just a Slaughterbound +3 Exalted if you want to. Being able to back that up with a Defiler downrange that actually has the shooting to make your opponent respect it, with the ability to ignore mods if your opponent's debating throwing down hit mods of any kind, is actually pretty serious. The Defilers themselves are more durable. I think they add a lot to Khorne Demonkin, in exactly the ways that it likes. Demonkin loves being a combined army more than any of the other ones. We go into tons of detail in the detachment tier list breakdown. I'll go ahead and save it for there. But I think as a concept, if you want to be playing that list, Defilers, that's their home. I honestly think that is their home as a detachment. I know we talked about Warband playing a Flamer plus Scourge. I actually do think that Defiler is still good there. And speaking of which, talking about Warband, I think we should be on, I legitimately think we should be on double Slaughterbound now. Minimal footprint. Slaughterbound's being able to revive 8-bound after the 8-bound are dead. Big change. I don't think you'll be doing it often, but you'll be doing it more often at least. I think you should be playing Slaughterbound with Glaive, playing from Ingress. And I think you should be playing Slaughterbound with Lust from Deep Strike, going for that 7 reroll. Pair that with Angron, who again has a minimal footprint, incredibly durable. You can hide him in a corner, say, hey, opponent, you get to shoot me with one gun. You better hope it kills my Demon Primarch, and then he's going to charge you, right? That is a good way to be playing Angron right now. The other thing is Karn +10 in his Rhino. Like I said, you're still going to be playing him. There's likely going to be a staging spot where you can hide the Rhino. Your opponent may have access to actually hit him, but I think hiding one is way easier than hiding more. So if we're looking at Warband, I do see it being more of like a, if you remember like the list that I was playing for the Dallas Open, almost at the beginning of the World Leader Codex time, which was like a Demon Prince, two Slaughter, a lot of 8-bound and one car with two Forge Fiends. It's going to be kind of similar to that. I would still be playing Forge Fiends in Berserker Warband right now. Like I said, you have to get your opponent out of the firing lanes, or else they are not going to let you get away with that Slaughterbound Ingress or that 8-bound Deep Strike, where they'll be able to Overwatch it, right? 8-bound still die to an Overwatch like crazy, so make sure we're trying our best to dodge those. But I am super excited for that kind of a build for Berserker Warband. So broadly for 11th, I'm excited for the state. I'm excited for the state of 11th in general. But for right now, and I'll be honest, guys, we don't know what points are. I'm not trying to doom. I foresee world leaders struggling competitively. Fast gun is going to be really, really strong into us. I see our low durability and high cost really kind of holding us back a bit. Do not doom, please. Remember that we were unplayable trash at the beginning of the launch of 10th. Uh, we were fixed very quickly. I look forward to multiple alternative playstyles to Warband. I legitimately have high hopes for the Khorne Demonkin build, and I look forward to World Leader expanding further in this edition, right? More data sheets. Data sheets and the detachments slot so well together. All right, if we get random data sheets dropped throughout the edition, random data sheets get buffed. It can buff detachments, dispositions getting buffed, right? There's plenty of levers to pull to actually fix the army. Granted, I don't think we're going to be unplayable trash like we were at the start of 10th. And I'm talking like very beginning of 10th, guys. Like we got fixed quickly. But I will say I've thoroughly enjoyed almost every game of 11th so far, even the ones into rough matchups. It feels like there's always a way to score points. It feels like there's always a way back into the game. Not in like a freeway like challenger cards back into the game, but like you always have something to do every turn. And if you're getting blown out, you're getting blown out. That wouldn't change between 10th or 11th. But fast gun, good. Melee edition, I'm not so sure about that, right? Towing into terrain, shooting through it, going 17 inches. Man, EC, CSM defilers haven't felt better, right? Right, Monka now being able to just scout up and tow to ruins. That's still a thing. It's still going to hurt. And I think those are going to be some of our hardest matchups. Now, if you get paired into like orcs or blood angels or something, fair game, right? You may be able to just absolutely have a great game with that. But in general, at the most competitive level, I can see world leaders struggling on launch. We have tons of content and tactics coming soon. Like I said, we need points before we can actually break down how to play a specific list, right? I can't show you where to move your trash until I know what trash we have. Once points are fully available, it's possible the points completely fix us. It's possible the points maybe put us back a little bit. That's fine. Just remember, a lot of other armies are probably going to be feeling and saying the same thing. It's very easy to doom, but it's not productive, right? It is our goal as a channel to provide the best content possible for how to make the most of an army no matter what its state is. So, everybody that hasn't gone through an edition drop, peace of mind. Sometimes it sucks, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's broken. It is always the Wild West. It always gets fixed quickly. So with that, I have really nothing else to add. Please stay tuned, check out the Discord, check out the Patreon if you'd like to be more engaged in conversations with the Primarchs directly for like list building ideas and concepts. We're still active everywhere. But a coffee a day really goes a long way for supporting this content. So with that, stay healthy, stay safe, and kill, maim, burn.